I'm very excited, after having worked very closely with Gab and the team for many months, that OS-Climate is thrilled to be merging today, announced here today, with FINOS to join this very mature community that FINOS has built with its incredible operations, the very many members that are here. And so this is the beginning of really taking our organization, and we believe FINOS, both communities, to a much greater level, both in having an impact on the globally changing problem of our day, climate change, that Michael talked about, while also delivering tremendous business value for our members. This is really what the whole thing is about, and we're thrilled to have a panel of OS-Climate members, but also the COO of FINOS to be able to talk about how we're going to be doing this in the years ahead.
Thank you so much, Truman. Give OS-Climate a round of applause. This is exciting news. I hope you all understand you can make a huge impact here. Before we bring the panel up with Truman, I just want to take a chance to welcome some of our new members. We have a couple of members that are in common, Goldman Sachs and Red Hat, but we have some really nice new additional members supporting FINOS, supporting OS-Climate. See, I'm going to get my story straight here. OS-Climate joins FINOS as a supplemental directed fund. So you got 2 QR codes there on the right side. Check out the projects. Those are the 4 projects that, and more actually, than Michael talked about. And if you're interested in supporting OS-Climate as part of FINOS, you can check the QR code on the left. We're super excited. And Truman, I'll leave it with you to bring on the panelists. Welcome to FINOS.
Thanks so much, Gab. Can I ask my panelists to join us up on the stage here now? This is a momentous day, and we've all been living in great anticipation of this. I could think of, so big hand of applause for all those that are here on the stage. First, let us tell you about, it's hearing from me about what this merger holds for both organizations is, I couldn't do justice better than the members of our community that it's really all about. I'll tell you a couple of important things. So not only will members of OS-Climate sort of benefit from being the operational integration that Jane's going to tell you about, but all of the members of OS-Climate will also become members of FINOS. So this is really essential for integrating in that large and growing opportunity community of FINOS. So that's one of the things that's really important. In the panel here today, we bring together sort of the major pillars of the OS-Climate community now moving into FINOS. So we've got the financial services community, we've got the technology community represented by Red Hat, we've got also the advisory services community represented by Capgemini and touching a vast number of companies across both financial services and the real economy, so large companies. And then Jane, and I think you all know well her crucial role at the center of COO of FINOS, can talk more about sort of our joint vision. So let me start off the panel with first kind of setting the stage on global trends. So what are the global trends in ESG that you see, and what are the most pressing needs for your organization? And if you want to mention also things for your clients. Let's start with you, Dunstan.
Thank you. Hi. So working at a financial services institution that for many years has had a commercial business in climate, but also commitments on the climate front. One of the things we see changing over these years and years to come is the increase in regulation and things moving from voluntary to required. And that has, it's super exciting to see this change. We're seeing it on the set of measures that are covered and needed, so going from sort of climate transition and physical risk through into impacts in biodiversity. We're seeing it on a level that's the materiality. It's no longer just the financial materiality that could affect ourselves, but how we can affect others, double materiality. And so this creates a massive increase in measures. It's also on the products. It's not just what loans we have on the balance sheet. It's how we advise clients, funds we manage for clients, and so it goes across the entire product set of a financial service organization. And it's also at the same time the assurance level, moving from voluntary assurance to limited assurance. Are you audited to make sure you haven't said anything particularly wrong, through to reasonable assurance? Have you missed anything out? And so all these angles of sort of regulatory compliance really come together. We take an example of EU CSRD, which is purposefully extraterritorial and global in nature. It creates this massive demand. And so, how do we tackle that and manage that is front of mind for us.
Excellent. So I think Vincent may have some thoughts and views that he may want to share on this as well.
Sure. So I think one of the key challenges we see underlying all this is the challenge of data. If you look at businesses today, not just financial institutions, by the way, business and regulators looking at ESG, they face fundamentally two issues. One is the fragmentation of data. The other is the fragmentation of reporting standards. So when you actually look at those two challenges, there's been countless initiatives to actually try to create common standards, common database. None of these initiatives has ever succeeded. We don't believe that actually there is a way to create a central database or format to actually rule them all. So the way we actually approach the solution is to actually use open source principle and collaboration and technology to look at how we can federate existing data, existing knowledge around ESG, how we can build equivalence and bridges between reporting standards. And the good news is there's ample technology out there, mostly open source, that helps you provide tools and ways to deal with this issue. The only thing that we need to do now is, as a community, we need to work together to build standard recipe to use this technology and make it easily accessible for the majority of organizations out there. So I truly believe, and I think this is why Red Hat was engaged in OS-Climate from really early beginning in these discussions around technology and platform. We think the financial community is the best precursor to dealing with this type of problem because of the central role that we play as a community in actually channeling investment into climate initiatives.
Excellent. And so thank you, Vincent. One of the really exciting roles that OS-Climate has come to play in the international arena on these issues is as a formal advisor to a thing called the Climate Data Steering Committee. It was formed out of an agreement between French President Emmanuel Macron and Mike Bloomberg a couple of years ago because of the really lack of leadership across these issues and the inability of having sort of a coherent answer coming from 160 governments and the need for bringing together a small group of the greatest organizations in regulation and the companies that are right at the core of the data problem. So we're on the expert advisory panel to this, and our members are engaged in the development of solutions that can support one of the main things that the Climate Data Steering Committee is developed or is developing as a solution. It's called the Net Zero Data Public Utility. And I would note that before those words were spoken by Mike Bloomberg and Emmanuel Macron, before that, together with Vincent and other members in Glasgow, OS-Climate brought this notion to the public for the first time. Vincent, you've been involved in some of the steps of early implementation of that. Do you want to mention a couple of those things in Singapore?
Yes, so some of you may know I'm actually based in Singapore. Singapore is a very interesting country in terms of ESG, very progressive. Pretty much the way to go in Singapore is the government creates a ESG sandbox, which is called Project Greenprint. And this project basically looks at how to link the community, including businesses who've got to kind of start looking at how they measure their own emissions, how they start reporting on ESG KPI, but also how this ties with sharing of this information with financial institutions to actually create a better environment for kind of KYC, ESG-driven KYC. And that includes the building of a utility as well, again, for public goods sponsored by the Singapore government, which is really focusing on making this technology and the data accessible to the business as well as the bank and the regulator. So this fantastic, I would say, ecosystem that we have in Singapore is, of course, very good for innovation. And one of our members in OS-Climate called UREG, actually is a regulatory reporting a fintech company, is actually building an equivalence, a reporting equivalence capability now in partnership with the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And we're basically open sourcing this equivalence as well as the engine as part of the OS-Climate project.
Thanks, Vincent. So that's actually a great lead-in to then talking about where we see, where the panelists see areas where the merger can really boost the ability of OS-Climate and FINOS together to provide value, to themselves and their members against these trends. And maybe, I think, Dunstan, you can start here, yeah?
Thank you. So yeah, sometimes we think of regulation as a burden, but in this case, it's super empowering. How do we scale the impact that Michael's so summarized that we need to do? How can we increase the decisions and the size of the decisions we make? We need trust in that data. And why is that difficult? Well, if we look at the journey of some of this data, it's very convoluted. It's coming from corporate disclosures, it's coming through to non-profits, it's coming into for-profits, it's coming into financial institutions, and then it's coming out to regulators again and going around the circuits. And in each of these stages, there are a lot of complicated measures that people are unfamiliar with. It's hard to spot if you're a billion times off. Or, so we've got units problems, we've got data quality metadata, we've got data catalogs, we've got international variation of all these measures. And how can we help the community of regulators that are trying really hard on this to converge? We can do that by having common technology and platforms and common associations where we similarly share data models. And this community has done this before. It's come together in trade reg reporting, in the common domain model, and other things to do this. And so I think it's super exciting to think, how can we sort of use this community spirit to do that. And in fact, Jane very kindly suggested one of the things through the Open RegTech Council, wearing sort of FINOS hat, that we should think about doing an ESG example in Open RegTech. And so we offered to host that at the end of last year, and we're really sorry, we had something like 69 different people join us for a day at fairly short notice. There were 19 different firms to come and play this journey of an EU CSRD regulation on climate measures. And some of the data we used came from the mesh that Red Hat had built, and Allianz from implementing the open. Yeah, exactly. Here today.
Allianz IDS is here, and you'll be able to talk at our booth afterwards. Go ahead. Yeah,
absolutely. So come and meet people who sort of made this happen. And how do we, imagine moving that data across these journeys in a really trust-driven way, in a way that we can, scale this. So excited.
Terrific. So I don't know whether, Jane, you want to say anything further?
Yeah, I can add to this. So I think it was one of the ways that we find really organic synergies between our community and the OS-Climate community. And this kind of, the hackathon that Dunstan was talking about happened last year. We did kick it off. We were, as part of our Open Right Tech initiative that Kim mentioned, we were on a search for use cases that are important to our community. And as part of that search, we iterated through several regulatory themes and multi-regional regulations. We actually worked with PJ DiGiamarino from JWG, who helped us and bring the community closer and closer together. We iterated through multiple use cases, but one of the things that came across was, a lot of people were very interested in ESG data normalization. And so we thought we could run a hackathon around that. And then Goldman Sachs stepped forward and gave us a space, and we were personally very surprised at how many people we got from how many different organizations, and the excitement, you know, and the multifaceted nature of the problem. There were so many different parts to the problem, and what was clear was that no one had the answers, everybody was trying something out, and it was so much better together because people could learn from each other. So that was one of the first natural points where we recognized that across the financial services community, there's a lot of this going on already. People are asking a lot of questions, and this is one of the most common denominators for us. So it was a very successful event.
Terrific, and it was really sort of a step toward what we're announcing here today. So this is terrific. We'll see a lot more of this, and as Jane will mention later, it's the kind of the specific opportunities to engage. In terms of specific cases where OS-Climate can create value, but even more so with FINOS. Florent, we'd love to hear about Capgemini and its work with its many clients around the globe.
Yeah, sure. So Capgemini is a business and transformation partner, and we are supporting basically all the economy. So the financial services represent around 20% of our activities, and the rest is, as you said, the real world economy. And we engaged with OS-Climate many years ago, in fact, through a project to help a big European aircraft manufacturer to assess scenarios and understand, okay, what are the multiple choices that they can do, and what are the strategic scenarios that they can assess, and how it will impact their future product to decide, given the multiple regulation, as you were saying, and the technology choice that they will do. Should I switch to electric, to hydrogen? Will I have enough of this? What will be an impact on my net zero trajectory? So we have built a product called Business for Planet Modeling, which we are pushing to company, which is based on a foundation which is OS-Climate. And we did that because we believe it's fantastic to go to clients and tell them, okay, through OS-Climate, through this solution, you can have access, you can select the scenario, you can base your scenario, your strategy on science, on models that have been discussed across the world. And I give you an example. For one energy company, we do that, and they come to us, okay, we want to invest in energy transition solution. We want to see how we can accelerate our deployment of capital in those assets. But we don't want to use our own model. We want to move away from the black box. We want to be auditable, and we want everybody to know that we are using such model, such scientific model based on IPCC, etc. So we want to do something that is based on science, and there is actually no other solution than using open science data to do that, because it's been shared across the world. And that's what we see now is interesting, that we are moving from physical risk assessment, from scenario planning to the investment question. How will we be able to finance those investments that we need to do? The financial services community asks us, okay, what is the exposure of my client to physical risk, to climate risk, and what are the ability of those companies to finance the investment that they will need to do in the future to succeed and remain in operation and in business. And that's where they were two worlds apart. the financial world and the climate risk assessment model. So it's, to me, a very good news, because we will soon be able to answer this question with this merger and say, okay, now we have shared data, shared model across the financial community and across the industry. So that will make it much easier to go and push to our clients and help them answer those questions of how much will it cost, will I be able to, what are the financial tools, etc. And put that in a scenario model framework that everybody agrees on, because we don't have time to build a model bank by bank, industry by industry. So that's, to me, an accelerator of decision that we will be able to access here.
Right, and that connects through to the point that Dunstan made earlier about, I mean, this, you all got to recognize a major takeaway from what we're talking about here. This is a moment of consolidation, unlike really anything, it's around ESG, but it's a pure financial services and business core transformation of the global economy. It touches every single company in this room.
And if I may add on the question now, are moving from sustainability head in the companies to CEOs, strategy board, and CFOs. So suddenly the question of climate is becoming a strategy question, an investment question. So we need to be much more precise with the answer that we bring.
I'll give you an example. Regulators require our frontline bankers to have a view on a company's transition, as part of business selection. And so, the requirement to sort of capture that detailed knowledge in a broad set of people in a trustworthy, quick way is coming, and we're, yeah.
And you'll be able to talk to our members from BNP Paribas here at the booth later today about these regulatory requirements in the course of doing business in banking, which is absolutely right current, and it's the basis for the Physical Risk and Resilience project that they lead that Michael talked about earlier. So I want to transition then also to talk about other aspects of value creation, and we've worked a lot with CAP on some of these, including around the marketing benefits and the like. And so do you want to say a bit about, beyond the business value creation you've mentioned already, some of the ways that you see the merger allowing us to provide more value to CAP and the other members?
Yeah, sure. Well, I was just simply saying, it's giving a larger, a broader audience to what we are doing together and to what we can do together. So enlarging the reach of the ability to push the solution to our clients, to the financial community. So not only here today, but I'll give you the example, we have a big presence in Climate Week in New York, where we will be showcasing what we do with OS-Climate, like we did last year, and it's a fantastic community opportunity, and I invite you here, the FINOS community, to join this event. We will be showcasing what we do together with OS-Climate, and now with FINOS. So in terms of reach and capacity to spread the message that we have now a common language across the financial industry and across the sustainability and the manufacturing industry, for instance, is a fantastic news to me.
Great, and just again, come talk at the booth here. It's the week before the Open Source and Finance Forum in October, the FINOS event. It's the third week of the last week in September, but there is a lot of opportunity for your organizations to get involved in what's OS-Climate and working with FINOS and OS-Climate's efforts during Climate Week. So talk to us at the booth there. Before I turn to Jane, really to bring things together, I don't know if you had a word or two, Vincent, or should we go straight to, yeah.
Yes, so quickly, I think obviously we are excited with FINOS opportunity in terms of having access to more technology building blocks to build solution. But I would like to mention as well the concept of open data, because we've talked a lot about open source for technology. I think from the fundamental aspect we are also trying to deal with is access to open climate data. And this is not just about giving you an Excel spreadsheet with some data. What we are talking here really about is how do you make sure that we build trust in the data source, that we build data lineage, that we build common referential model for metadata around climate. And that is the bulk of the work we have started, including some contribution by members like Allianz, which has just contributed a data product on a PCAF sovereign bond footprint. There is this huge opportunity now in the community to build those reusable open data products that are going to make your life and the adoption and integration of climate data with your own respective firm needs and system a lot easier. So if you are interested in the topic, we have a session this afternoon that I'll be presenting on open data products in particular, and we'll be giving some example on how they can actually be built.
Terrific. And so, Jane, can I turn to you?
And it makes me grin because that naturally brings me to the second point of what the synergies are. And here, it is really all about technologies. So, because most of us are here to talk about tech, this is what is striking is how common some of the technical building blocks are across any financial services domain. So you have the regulatory components and building up an infrastructure where you can have the data lineage that helps you create your regulatory reports or fulfill your regulatory obligations. But obviously the other one, as any technologist in financial services know, is the data part, right? Structuring data, having, and the AI panel talked about this as well. They said, oh, you can't talk about AI without mentioning data. Well, you can't talk about financial services without mentioning data, right? So considering how much we are all involved and what a large component of our time and effort goes on making sure the data is right, it's well structured, it can be passed on, it could be used by multiple functions across your financial supply chain in an efficient way. This is something that's extremely common with what OS-Climate and what climate solutions focus on. And this was also further evidenced by the fact that as part of the Open RegTech, one of the solutions that we're working on right now that Kim referred to, we were looking for, what's the most demonstrate, what's the most efficient, what's the best technology stack that we can use. And this is when Vincent and I were first introduced to each other, and we were just kind of talking to each other about, well, what do you do? What do you do? And Vincent explained to me about the data mesh. And he said, oh, I think this would be really great for you to use in your project. So we immediately, and then now you've come and you've participated in that initiative. So we're immediately seeing a lot of really common themes which are bringing value across the board. So I'm really excited about that. So both on a technology side and on the membership side, we're finding a lot of synergies.
Terrific. And, let me just first ask the organizers if we have time for Q&A. We're sort of right at, we don't. Okay, so the Q&A, can happen at our booth. And also this afternoon in Suite 3, we'll have a time where you can grab us at the booth. If there's a big, scrum, go off and have a deep conversation for some learning. I think maybe you wanted to hit 2 or 3 points, Jane, that are really the big calls for action here.
Yeah, so I want to leave you with, well, what should you do about this? What should you do about this? So I will say 3 things. One is learn. Learn about OS-Climate, learn about our Open RegTech projects, and just become familiar with the topic. I don't want to do a show of hands, but I'm sure that lots of people care about climate change, and what does this mean for me? So this is one way you could learn and participate in this topic. Second, pass on the information. One of the most important things to me as COO of FINOS is to get more people across our membership within particular organizations involved and aware of what we're doing. So if you work in one department, but it has nothing to do with climate, find other colleagues that have something to do with climate, whether it's on the business or on the tech side, and tell them about what we're doing. Bring them here, bring them to us, to our projects, to this community. So learn, pass on, and third, start contributing. Start contributing to these projects. Come and find out what you can do. Doesn't matter if you know nothing about this. You have some sort of technical skill. You have a business analysis skill. You have a marketing skill. It really doesn't matter. We need everybody. So learn, pass on, and start contributing. Those are my actions for you.
Thanks so much, Jane, for bringing us home.